everybody, listen here. We're going to start the show with a little bit of trivia for you. So if you're paying attention, listening, and you haven't shut us off yet, we have some great question for you to ask you. Eric, you want to ask that question?
No, I don't.
All right.
I asked this question of Dave earlier,
It was a great question.
but it's got to be phrased in the right way.
So Eric,
So-
Eric, you asked the question.
So the trivia question is, who has played for the Rangers, the Knicks, and the Yankees?
At the same time.
Right. So I should say the New York Rangers, New York Knicks, New York Yankees. Who has played for those three teams?
At the same time.
Well, either at the same time or at any time. I mean,
At any time. So now, if you know the answer, here's what we're going to do this show. And if you're listening, please make sure to ask your friends as well. The winner at the end of the show, whoever the first person is, because Jonathan's going to be watching, there might be a winner on Instagram, there might be a winner on Facebook, so we'll even offer 2 winners. A free tumbler for you if you know the answer.
are we on
All right?
that?
Tell me, Ron, for the love of Pete, please
Are we
tell me,
on
Ron.
Facebook or no?
Yeah.
All right, so
We're live
Facebook,
on Facebook.
Instagram,
Okay.
trivia question for you throughout the show. If you know the answer, okay, please give me the answer, give us the answer, shout it out, type it out. Jonathan's watching on Instagram and Facebook. We'll leave one on each one of the options there. All right, so the podcast today is about relocation, what you need to know about relocating into Connecticut or out of Connecticut, relocation as a whole. Things you need to think about, know about, plan for, and why it's important to know this information, because more than ever today, people are moving into Connecticut more than they've ever moved into Connecticut, I think, probably in the history of Connecticut, I would say.
But, I mean, when you're moving out of Connecticut, there's still some things that you'll...
The exact same things you need to know when moving out of Connecticut. So this is going to help out in many facets.
Yeah.
So the first question I'm going to say is,
Depending on where you're going to, so.
do you plan on winging it, or are you prepared? What kind of person are you? Do you wing it, or do you prepare? Personally, I'm a prepare kind of guy. What are you, Eric?
I don't know, I actually like the breast or the thigh. Oh, you said wing. Oh, wing it, okay, sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
I almost spit out the water.
I go for that every show. I try to get him at least once when he's sipping to try and get him
That was
to...
good, that was good.
No, I'm kind of a blend.
Kind of a blend.
Because sometimes you have to wing it, because
True.
you can't foresee everything, so.
That's true. But in this case scenario, I would say you're planning for this kind of situation. Good to prepare yourself and plan for a relocation.
Yeah.
Kind of move. Such a big piece of the puzzle in your life with family.
But actually, with the move and everything, I don't even know that some of that stuff comes in, and you don't even know that you have to prepare for stuff.
Except right now, we're going to help them to figure this out.
Well,
we're going to help
figure
them
it out, or at least...
educate them as
At
much as
least,
possible.
well, no, because like, you had discussed this with me the other day. You was like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, make up some bullet points.
Yep.
So, remember, I moved to Connecticut from New York
Yes.
in '07.
Yes.
So a lot of the stuff that's on my list was stuff that I experienced, because I was like, who better to use than myself as a reference?
Absolutely,
Because I know there's a
100%.
bunch of stuff that I experienced moving here that I wasn't accustomed to or gotten used to or stuff like that, so.
Absolutely. So, do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
All right. So,
I want to hear what you say.
the first thing is going to be hiring a moving company. And one of the most important things in hiring a moving company is to do your research. Make sure to read about a moving company, who they are they licensed and insured, right? What kind of reviews do they have about them? Read the reviews. How recent are those reviews? We actually had over here recently, Hands on Moving, Xavier Richardson, and he did an amazing job, of course, but has a company that has 5-star reviews, hundreds of them. And when you read through, you look for the negative ones, and there's no negative ones. That's a big thing. So look at hiring a moving company in advance. It's expensive or not expensive, but it's something you need to prepare for what you're moving. And maybe you may think about what you don't want to move because it may not be that important to you to actually move that item.
Right.
Reduce. Anything you want to start, the next thing you want to go with?
Oh, yeah, well, we'll go back and forth.
All right, so you're
So
next.
my first one was getting accustomed to septic and well when coming from the city.
Wow, that's a really good point.
So, growing up in New York City and then moving to Long Island, it was always city water, city sewer. Everything was city water, city sewer.
Yes.
I bought a house that had a septic, until I started doing real estate and started, doing the inspections and all of this.
Yep.
I didn't really know how the darn thing worked.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. As a matter of fact, with septic, there's so many caveats.
Water
to it.
pressure,
Yep.
water pressure. I mean, not everybody in New York, I'm sure, but most people, the water pressure, it takes a layer of skin off every time you take a shower. You know, we got really good water pressure in New York.
That's
you know?
interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Not the
So-
pressure's not so great in Connecticut.
No,
It's-
and
it's
in
not-
New York, it's like flush. It just, the water goes. You know, in New York, it's like, get out of here. You know, it's like in a rush to get out.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah,
I
it's
love it.
crazy.
That's actually really funny. All right. So the next thing I'm going to talk about on that relocation part is if you have kids, you got to prepare for schools and educating yourself on what kind of schools and where you want to be for your kid in schools. Maybe your kid has special needs like Tiffany Katz, and you want to get somebody who's educated in special needs kids to help you find the right kids, a school for your kids. These are something that's very important when it comes to schools. Then you have schools between elementary, middle, and junior high and high school. You know, what websites are you going on to find out about school systems? Some of the school websites I found were greatschools.org, niche, N-I-C-H-E, niche.com, CT Insider, copax.org, and those are some great websites to look for schools.
You get CT Insider twice.
Twice, I did.
Nice.
But yeah, greatschools.org was one of them I just found, and I thought that was interesting. So check out the school systems in the area to see what level of education you want for your kids, the grade points, the levels, the A, B, the A through Fs, the 1 through 10s. And again, that's an important piece of the puzzle I think most families want to look into. Next
My
for
turn.
you.
All right. So if you're coming from the city, big city, medium city, and you're moving into town like, say, Cheshire,
Yes.
okay.
Small city.
Get accustomed to the quiet. Get accustomed to the quiet when coming from the city because the quiet is loud. that nothingness going on,
Right.
that hum you hear in your ears. I go to sleep with the TV on.
Yeah.
Because I need to have like an occasional siren going off.
That's
So I will go to sleep watching like Blue Bloods or something, just so I have some semblance of New York in the background.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So get accustomed to the quiet or look to be in a place that's a little more
And these are
vibrant.
not criticisms, they're just things you got to get used to.
Maybe you want to live near an airport because of the noise factor. But let's talk
I did that.
You know, when you were in New York, you lived by an airport,
Very
right?
clear, very near an airport. yes.
And you know what? Being in Connecticut, you have a couple of airports. And that might be something to talk about as far as, you know, is it important to live by an airport because of your business life, leisure? You have in Connecticut a couple of great airports that are very convenient to us. We have the newest one. Well, it's actually not new. It's Tweed. It's not new at all. But
It's
most recently, though, it's become a major player in Connecticut to travel of Velo Airlines, which I have to tell you is by far one of the best things, in my opinion, that has happened. I love the company, love what you're doing, their level of service, they're clean. I mean, it's a very simple airline. There's no frills. They don't have Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. No big deal. Download your shows or whatever you've done, your iPad, your phones. Great customer service, great pricing. Their flight hours are fantastic. And I'll tell you, we joined I mentioned before, the Silver Sands Beach Club. I got to tell you, being at the beach club, which is right down the street from the airline, love watching the airplanes fly in and out. It is phenomenal. And living near an airport, I think is the coolest thing personally because you can hear the planes and watch them.
Not all the time.
Well, that's where as
Not
a
all the
person who
time.
maybe lives there, then not be crazy about it. So
Where I lived, the Concorde, you could hear the Concorde taking off.
Yeah.
And it was,
Well,
outside of some of the concerts that I've been to, it was one of the loudest things I've
well,
ever
yeah, but
heard.
you live near JFK Airport. JFK
Yeah.
Airport is
Yeah,
like
this wasn't Meriden Markham or
right,
something like
right.
that.
This
Yeah,
is
no.
not. This is definitely not like a Velo
So-
Airlines.
And there were 2 Concordes flying at the time.
Wow.
'Cause British Airways had one and Air France had one.
Huh.
So.
That's a whole
yeah,
different
But they
level
only
of-
flew, I think, like a couple of times a week.
Right.
So it wasn't that bad.
Well, a Velo I think flies maybe a couple times. They may have 3, 4, 5, 6 flights a day. It's nothing like they're out every hour. But I will tell you, I love listening and watching it. That's a really cool thing. So you have Bradley Airport, you have Velo Airport, very close and convenient for travel, for work, and also for leisure and enjoyment.
My turn.
Yes.
Again, if coming from a big city, get used to having to drive places. Why'd you laugh?
This is true.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
You could, through growing up, a lot of the places that I've lived, you could walk to like 17 different styles of eating.
Right.
Okay.
Food, shopping,
Pizza,
probably.
shopping. You could rent, back when what's their name was open, Blockbuster Video.
Yes.
I mean, you could walk to everything.
Yeah.
Walk to everything.
Walk
You
to get
didn't
your
need a car.
coffee. Right. Not.
You
Listen,
did not need a car.
There are a lot of people who live in the city of New York who swore they'd never leave New York because of the fact that they could not give up or would not give up the conveniences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're accustomed to convenience like that, it's unbelievable how different it is to be in Connecticut because it does not actually exist like that.
DoorDash fixes that kind of.
DoorDash definitely fixes it. The other one is my wife uses all the time is the Instacart.
Yeah.
These
Oh,
companies,
no, all of them. Just
they are amazing what they brought to the table. You're absolutely right. But you know what? There are a lot of people who love to move into towns in Connecticut or near the shoreline, like Branford and Guilford, and they have the greens, and they want to live within a half a mile of those locations.
Right.
Because they want that convenience of going to get restaurant ice cream and food and the
Yep.
local mom and pop stores, your drugstores and everything else. So that's definitely available if you're looking for it. So be conscious about if you're relocating from, let's say, like the city like Eric did, to what kind of environment you're moving into. And that's a very good point. Speaking of that, it's also with highways. It's important for you to be near a highway. Connecticut has lots of highways and route numbers and things for in and out traffic. So if it's important for you to be in a specific direction for work or for personal life or where your family are living or you want to commute to, pay attention to how close you are to highways when you're relocating because that's going to play a major role on how fast you may get to those locations.
Yep.
So commute time is some. Oh, by the way, before moving to an area, you can always go to Google Maps and actually look to see how far you are from XYZ places from where you want to live potentially. Your turn, buddy.
My turn. Okay. You had mentioned weather, I believe, earlier.
Not yet over here.
Okay. So I'm going to go with one single weather adjustment or kind of condition that I had to get used to. And I wrote it on here is falling leaf volume compared to your previous location. Okay? So again,
This is awesome.
again, not something I was accustomed to.
Right.
And I thought, a rake and this, and I got this.
Right.
You
Hold
know?
on, there were no trees where you were, but maybe there was 3 trees
There
in your
was
back.
some trees, but not to the extent of what I got now.
Right.
You know? It
That's-
was like, too much.
Too much.
Too much.
You're in the fall and you're going crazy with the amount of leaves that you don't
Yeah,
actually
I could
realize-
make a pile, like when I lived in New York, I could make a pile that was maybe 3 feet high.
Okay.
And like 3 feet wide, 4 feet wide,
Right.
whatever. Now I got like 5 piles that are that.
Not to mention, raking leaves is not something that's fun because one little blow of the wind and you're back to square one again.
Yep.
And that is very frustrating. I'll never forget when I was a young kid, my buddy Barry, someone in his family had asked, hey, you guys want to rake some leaves? And I was like, sure, yeah, it would be a great little job. We'll make some money. We went between these 2 houses in the backyards and we're raking leaves. And, we're raking leaves back there for like 4 or 5 hours. And we were exhausted. We came back in. We got a bite to eat. We hadn't picked them up yet. We just got in the piles. And the wind came through, and all the leaf piles went all over the place. And I looked at Barry, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, you got to bag
I
it right
quit.
away.
I was like, that's it, I'm done.
You got to
I'm
bag
out.
it right away.
Yeah, it was definitely nuts. I remember that was the one time I raked leaves in my life, and I got PTSD from it. That's a good one, buddy. All right, so being close and convenient to, Eric mentioned convenience of like restaurants and stores, pharmacies, medical places, whether it's a hospital, doctor's offices, depending on the age you are or people in your family, maybe you have certain health conditions that they're important to you to look up before moving to a certain area to make sure you have special medical providers that you may need for kids, family, or grandparents or parents. With that being said, so medical facilities, maybe you're pregnant and you're having a baby and you need to make sure you're close to a hospital or you're planning on having kids in the near future. I would say to you that being close to a hospital, I don't know how far you're going to be and what hospital you want to choose. And in Connecticut, there's a lot of hospitals. Now, in New York, let me ask you a question. How many hospitals were you near when you lived in? You lived in exactly where did you live in?
In all the different places I've lived in, I was probably never more than 10 minutes away from a hospital.
How many hospitals? But you lived in where? Brooklyn.
Let's see, Queens, Brooklyn, Long Island, yeah. But
So
all of those, you're not more than 10 minutes from a hospital.
Okay. So in Connecticut, right, between Hartford and New Haven, you might have, it's got to be at least
I mean,
6 different
let's
hospitals
use
easily.
let's use Cheshire as a
Yeah.
kind
ground.
of epicenter.
Sure.
You know, so you've got just to the north, you've got Hartford,
Yeah. So you got Hartford Hospital before that, Mid-State.
right? You got Midstate and Meriden, and you got Yale and
You
New
got
Haven.
you got also
So
no, you got in Waterbury you have
and you got St. Mary's and a couple
right,
others
yeah,
in
exactly.
Waterbury.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're no farther than 15 minutes.
Right.
15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
some are
definitely-
30, but
So that was my next one. All right, buddy, you're up.
you got to make it in a hurry. That's where the ambulance comes in.
Yes.
So back to the weather thing. If you're coming from somewhere, now I don't know a lot of folks that are moving from Florida here,
Right. This is true.
but if you're moving from Florida here, get some clothing. Get appropriate clothing. 'Cause
Yeah, you're
this is not year-round shorts weather.
This is true.
You know, my dad, when he moved down to Florida and it got to like 40 degrees, everybody down there, they put on sweaters or jackets,
40. How about
gloves.
70 degrees? They start
No,
freaking out.
I'm talking about there were times that my dad's house doesn't have a boiler.
Right,
They
no
don't
heat.
have heat. And everybody was like, "Ugh," and my dad was like, "It's nothing. Come on, I've been in the cold, you
Right,
know." So
it's true. And it's funny you mentioned that because my father and my mother, they moved down to, of course, Florida a few years ago.
right.
When you mentioned 40, my father hit 70 and he's freezing. He's wearing 3 layers.
Really?
Oh, yeah, 3 layers. He's bundling up. But you have a good point. So when it comes to relocating, you definitely know your weather patterns
Well,
and be prepared
and
for
reverse, if you're moving from here to Miami or from here to Phoenix, Arizona,
clothes. Yeah.
get rid of those coats.
Burn 'em.
Get rid of those sweatshirts.
Yeah. Although, you know what's funny? Daniel, as a college boy, college man, he actually's now got thinner blood. He actually last year, because it did get a little colder down there, asked us to send him sweatsuits, like sweatpants and sweatshirts. He was freezing at night. He was
Freezing at night.
freezing at night. I was like, and we're talking about, it was like 20 degrees here, and it got down to like I think 70 or 60 degrees, and he said he was freezing, Dad. He's like, "There's freezing here."
Yeah, I would freak out if I had to put on sweatshirts in 60s and 70s.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. All right, another thing. Look for parks, playgrounds. Maybe you like to be a biker or a skateboarder, or you want a trail. Like we have the Farmington Canal, which a lot of people love. The Farmington Canal that runs from New Haven all the way to Farmington, and you can take this path, whether you're biking or walking or jogging or skateboarding or rollerblading. It's a great place that people love to get some exercise. And actually, I've seen people go from, let's say, Cheshire to Southington, go down there, get a couple of drinks, have some food.
Yeah,
then
there's
come
some
back.
stops on the way too.
Or from Cheshire to
You
Hamden.
know, you got like Pop's Pizzas.
Yes.
By one of the stops
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Sweet Claude's just moved over.
That's
To the
right.
West Main.
That's true.
So if you're in Cheshire and you're on the West Main,
Yes.
crossing the street there,
Yeah.
if I blew through, sorry.
That wouldn't happen.
It sometimes, they just jump out sometimes.
It's
and
possible.
if they didn't hit the button and
Right.
you got the
They're making a
the
run
red
for
light
it.
there. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Jonathan, we did have a trivia question. I'm not sure if everybody heard it. I'm not sure if anybody's responded to it on Facebook or
Not
Instagram
sure anybody's
yet.
watching.
Has anybody?
Gary knows it, but he doesn't.
Who does?
Gary knows it, but he's not gonna tell because he wants someone else to get the tumbler.
So Gary knows the answer. Gary, thank you so much for that. That's Gary Monroe, by the way, from Team Powerhouse, a fantastic real estate agent, a real powerhouse himself. And definitely, if you want to get in touch with Gary, I'm going to give Gary a shout out right now because he's watching the show. If you're looking to buy a house or sell a house, Gary Monroe, let's make sure you have his number. I'm going to say it out loud. Gary Monroe, Team Powerhouse, 203-598-2365. Make sure to chat to Gary, a hell of a guy and a hell of a realtor. All right, so
You
I'm going to
cursed.
let's repeat back that trivia question in case anybody missed it. What?
No.
No.
Who was the only person to
Who
play
was the only person?
to play for the New York Rangers, the New York Knicks, and the New York Yankees?
That's a pretty amazing question.
Yes.
So if you know the answer, guys, your chance to win a free tumbler on Instagram and also on Facebook. Please let us know. Please give a shout over there. Hopefully, Jonathan's able to watch both sides of the panel. I'm going to make sure that we're having on both sides watching as well to see if anybody's got any answers for us. In the meantime, going back to the next one. So I mentioned the playgrounds and bike rides, and what about you, my friend?
Weather again.
Weather again.
Weather again. Well, it is a little colder here than it is in New York.
Yes.
It does get a little snowier here than it does in New York.
Do you know, it's funny you mentioned that. My buddy Pat, who lives in New York, always tells me that it's warmer in the city than it is in Connecticut, which is kind of interesting.
What city?
New York City.
Oh, yeah.
Manhattan.
Well, it's a little farther south. It's not like right on the water. You know, you don't, depending on the jet stream and all this other stuff. But
Yep.
So one of the things that I had to get accustomed to here versus New York, as soon as that first flake hits the ground in New York, plows are out.
Is that
Multiple
right?
plows.
Really?
Yes. So you don't have to drive on, sometimes, you know, and I'm not criticizing our current plow system.
Yes.
You know, they spray, you see the lines in the
Yes,
ground, you know,
yes,
they
yes.
spray in advance or whatever, but there are some obstacles out there, you know, because the snow is sometimes 2, 3, 5 inches before they can get to your street or whatever.
Well, in the city of Manhattan, I don't think I've ever seen snow on the ground, and I was going to ask you that question because the subways are under the ground and it's so hot. Is that why it doesn't really build up snow on the main streets of Manhattan?
That impacts mostly the sidewalks because you have the grates there.
Yep.
So the heat that's coming up from there, so you'll never see snow on the grates.
Right.
Unless it was just like a complete, like, you know, 5 inches a minute type
Yeah.
snow. Yeah.
I just have never seen actual snow in the city of New York City.
Right.
But again, not that I'm there all the time, but I just figured I'd ask you that question. That's a very interesting point you make. All right. So my next one is, you're moving to a new place. What do you like to eat? What kind of restaurants are around you? Like Eric just said, he's so used to being surrounded by every type of ethnicity restaurant in New York City, in Manhattan, or in the Bronx.
Would that dictate where somebody's going to live based on the fact that they're like, you know what, I don't want to drive an hour and a half to get some food.
I definitely think it makes a difference. One of the things that Connecticut's known for, and one of the most well-known things that people love about Connecticut is the food. They have here in Connecticut, we say the best pizza, or people say the best pizza, the best Italian food. They say the best burgers, the original burger, Louis Lunch, right? I mean, seafood. People come to Connecticut for seafood restaurants all the time. We have family in Atlanta, right? They come here and they're like, we got to come in the summertime for the seafood. We got to come for the pizza. They're going to come for the Italian food. And they tell us that the restaurants that they have Italian food is not as good in the South.
What's Olive Garden? That's probably what it is, right?
It's probably like not that we're dissing Olive Garden, because I enjoy going there from time to time.
I like Olive Garden.
I like the never finish a salad kind of thing. Good chicken parm over there for fun, you know.
I like the breadsticks.
The breadsticks are
endless
yummy.
bread.
Endless bread.
Even Jonathan reacted.
But the restaurant. So when you're looking to move to Connecticut, you're looking at the restaurants. Adriana's in New Haven on Grand Avenue.
Yeah, you're biased.
I'm a little biased, but it's
You're a
so
little
good.
biased in that.
You have over there. You have let's talk some other restaurants. You have in Cheshire, we have Viron Osteria over there. Viron's very well known restaurant over here. You have
Cafe Luce.
Cafe
in
Luce
Hamden.
in Hamden. There you go. Luce Ristorante is actually Luce Ristorante is probably one of the best restaurants Hamden's ever had over there, and also survived all these years as well.
What about the one on North Haven, right down the road here?
Oh, you have actually you have La Lupa,
La Lupa.
which opened up in North Haven over here, a fantastic restaurant. You also have over here Antonio's, which is another great place for sandwiches and pizza. Good point. You have there's a couple of restaurants. North Haven's got some good restaurants over
North
here.
Haven has some good grub.
Yeah, but Connecticut's very well known for their eateries, seafood, Italian. I mean, but going to Florida, if you tell people what's a good restaurant to go to, the first thing they say is the food is not great here in Florida. And a lot of people from Connecticut, by the way, have opened up pizza joints down there. And you'll actually find pizza restaurants that say New Haven Pizza.
Right.
You have Mickey's, who was in Hamden, opened up a beautiful restaurant. I actually went down to see him when I was in Florida.
Mickey's is closed?
Yeah, Mickey's in Hamden closed. Yeah,
Okay.
during the
I didn't
pandemic. They opened a beautiful restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. Beautiful place. Great food. So a lot of these Connecticut people are actually going down to Connecticut, to Florida and open up restaurants. All right.
I'm sure they have some obstacles down there, though, don't they? Because like getting like the fresh fruit and stuff like that. I mean, fresh vegetables that they get up here,
I don't know about now.
like tomatoes and stuff
the
like that.
I'm going to say one thing about Florida, for example, is the fruits and vegetables are 100% better than these in Connecticut.
Really?
Absolutely. If you
With
go,
some of the farms we've got around here,
it's a different. I don't know what it is. It's something different about maybe the weather.
something in the soil.
I
don't know.
I think it's something in
I
the
don't know.
sunshine maybe, but definitely the fruits are different. All right, going past restaurants. What's the next one, my friend?
All right. Well, it depends on.
Relocation.
So, what I came up with was you're moving to Connecticut, probably more the center of Connecticut, but either end of Connecticut that you go to.
Yeah.
You're kind of in between Boston and New York. So
This is
you're
for sure the
so
hub.
you've got not very far to go to get into a big city, for either sporting event,
Yes.
theater,
Yes.
stuff like that.
That's a
So
great
moving
point.
into Connecticut, you're moving right between two big cities.
And probably two of the biggest rivals in the country between New York and Boston on every sports level, between the Yankees, the Red Sox, and you have the Pats and the Giants. I'm just throwing out some teams. In hockey, you have the Penguins and the Rangers.
Penguins are Pittsburgh.
I'm sorry, not Penguins. I'm sorry, the Bruins. I apologize.
Rangers and Bruins.
Yeah, Rangers
Two of
and
the
Bruins.
original 6 teams.
Right, the Rangers and Bruins. What other sports am I missing? Basketball, the Celtics and the Knicks.
Yeah.
These are rivals that have been rivals for years.
Decades.
Yeah. So you're right. We're right in the middle of both. And it's funny. You'll always find if you meet 6 people, half might be one way, half might be the other way in every team.
Yep.
And not to discount
Yeah,
the
and
Mets by no
it
means.
almost depends on where in Connecticut you live, because I think the farther north you are, you kind of lean more Red Sox than
Yes.
Yankees, and then the closer south and to the New York border,
Yep.
it's kind of more Yankees.
That's
Unless
true.
you want to be that guy, who's just like Yankee fans. I hate Yankee fans,
Right.
And I live in Greenwich.
Right,
you
right,
know?
right, exactly. All right, so the next thing I'm talking about is some things to think about is when you're moving to a new location, there are things such as insurance factors you got to consider. The kind of insurance you had, let's say in Connecticut versus other states, may be much higher. So you want to make sure you get good insurance and what kind of insurance you have. Some states you need to have flood insurance more than others. Connecticut has a lot of flood areas, believe it or not, that people don't realize.
Yeah, but we're gonna make sure you know that in advance.
100%. But these are things to consider when moving from state to state. Like, for example, my sister Debbie and Bruce, they just moved to California, right? Now, we talked about all these different factors of food and weather. It's amazing how different the West Coast is from the Northeast to the South and all these different dynamics. And my brother-in-law, Bruce, he loves right now California. He says the weather here is unbelievable.
Well, it's always 70.
He said the weather is
But
beautiful.
depends
all
on
day
where
long.
you. I mean, Northern California is not like that. So
It's probably more rain, I'm guessing.
rainier and colder.
Right.
It's not as nice as like say L.A., which is like almost like always 70.
Right.
San Diego.
Yep.
Which I've been to, which is the greenest, prettiest city I've ever been to. San Diego. If it wasn't so expensive to live there,
Right.
I probably would have considered it.
Right.
It's way too expensive.
Beautiful but expensive. But California right now is very expensive.
Yeah.
As is all of America for the most part with what's going on in the real estate market. But these big cities, you're right, it's very expensive. All right, so I mentioned insurance. You're mentioning now.
Let's see. Okay, here's one. Local sports. So, having grown up in New York, and now mind you, I went to high school back when Moses, wasn't quite that long, but it feels that long.
That was good.
But
Well,
no, it was in the 80s, and I don't know. I kind of get the feeling from talking to people in the town
Yep.
that the local sports was important here back in the 80s.
Right.
In New York, it wasn't like that.
Right.
So
That's
so
very
if
true.
you're thinking of okay, so I want my kids to grow up in a good athletic environment.
Yep.
Playing a team sport.
Yes.
Be it baseball, soccer, lacrosse, football.
Yes.
Hockey.
Right.
A lot of the Connecticut towns take their athletics very seriously.
That's a very good point you make. I will
Very
agree with you.
seriously.
It's funny. Every town thinks their kid, and every parent thinks their kid's going to be a superstar.
Well, I don't know if they think they're going to be superstars, but they definitely think
They-
that they're better than they are.
But it's not a bad thing that your kid, you love your son, you love your daughter, and you're all about
Well, you want them to
them.
be successful. So.
Absolutely, and you support them, but it's very, very big rivals. These towns, the rivals, the screaming parents.
Yeah, Cheshire, Southington.
I mean, it.
Thanksgiving Day game.
Right, Hamden, West Haven, huge rivals. There's lots of towns that have these huge rivals in every sports they play, which is amazing. And you're right, it's very the Valley. You have Seymour, the football in Sonia. I mean, the level of these teams and these towns and you're right, sports is a huge thing over here.
Yeah.
Like in the South, where football is everything.
Oh, well, Texas, Texas has some high school stadiums that seat 30,000,
Not crazy. I would love to go to a game like
if not
that.
more.
Right. I would have loved to have been a part of something like that. I would love to have experienced that, or at least go down there and see that.
Well, they made a movie about it.
Right. They
Friday
did.
Night Lights.
That's right.
And a TV
great, and a show.
So, yeah.
Yeah. A great show and a great
And
movie.
you know what? I didn't think about going down there to see the stadium when I was with Homeland. I did some training down in Dallas, and
That's
I
awesome.
never thought to I saw the Cowboy Stadium. Yeah,
Really?
AT&T, the new building.
That's pretty cool.
I saw that, but I didn't go to any of those high school stadiums.
It's funny you mentioned and just stadiums for a second. I talked to Danny back when he was in high school. One thing I always wanted to do was travel the country to see different sports stadiums, from stadium to stadium, whether football or baseball. And again, we're not talking about high school as you're talking about right now, but just stadiums as a whole and how these towns and they build. But going back to high school and football and baseball and all these different sports and how competitive in Connecticut they are. You're absolutely right. So
Oh, I lived it.
you're right. You're absolutely.
I was smack dab in the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we grew up and
And I enjoyed it, and it was nothing like when I was growing up.
Yeah, I agree
So
with you.
I was, for that, I was thankful.
We're
I was
lucky
like,
if you had
"This is
5
great."
parents show up at a game when we were kids.
No, we actually had more people show up than I remember.
Is that right?
Yeah, people ask me, I go, yeah, I think we had like 10, 10 or 15. It was actually more than that, but it felt, you didn't feel the passion that you feel at the games in Connecticut. So.
And it's interesting because back in the day, I remember, again, from my memory, I think most dads worked and they couldn't make a lot of games when you were a kid back in the day.
Right.
I mean, my father never got to really come to many games. He tried to. He would show up and surprise me sometimes, get out of the work, whatever it was. But it was much different. I think today, the parents, the way they set games up, they make it possible for parents to actually be at the games. They start later. They're doing the games at 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Or Friday night.
Right. And parents get to actually be a part of it, which is actually pretty cool. Let's go to another thing that's in a more very financial situation. When moving from state to state, you might have to hire a new accountant for your finances because you're typically used to using an accountant you've been where you were, and you probably now need a new accountant for all the new tax laws and what's going on in the place you live, and based on the new job you may have. So something also to consider, a new accountant. Not as exciting as the sports.
So one of the things, not that it was something that I experienced, but something that I know from when I requested a transfer
Yes.
from New York to Connecticut. One of the things that they said was, if you're requesting it for health benefits,
Yes.
then it's okay. So I was like, you never thought about that, but so you could have a situation where you have like asthma or some sort of respiratory problem that going to like say Arizona where
Yes.
the air is dry and
Yes.
stuff like that, it's huge benefit for you. So moving into Connecticut, I don't know that there's a huge benefit outside of the fact that the air is much cleaner than it is in New York.
It's
from all the trees that are dropping the leaves on my lawn.
Oh, man, absolutely, absolutely. By the way, I want to do a quick shout out to my cousin in Israel who's watching the show over here. Her name is Sharon. Sharon, thank you so much. I just watched over here watching us live in Israel, which is pretty cool. We have people all over the world, by the way, watching our live stream.
Now we can
podcast.
say all over the world.
All over the world. No, it's happening all the time, and it's so cool. So, Sharon, to you and the family, I want to thank you. Hugs and kisses to you guys, and thank you for watching the show. Going back to our show over here, I apologize, but I have to do a quick shout out over there. And let's go into, so we got accountant, insurance, registering your car may be a good thing if you're coming into Florida, you might want to register your car in Florida versus Connecticut.
Why?
How about the fact that it
I
costs
drive around, I
nothing?
see Florida license plates like crazy.
Because it's so much cheaper to have, right? I mean,
I think so.
I mean-
well, back in the day, I don't know if they allow it or not, but there were a lot of cars in New York that had North Carolina plates.
Right.
Because like North Carolina was the cheapest place to get any insurance.
right,
You know.
absolutely.
So, like, what do? You get a PO box in North Carolina, and then that's your address. And
Interesting.
you can get insurance on your car there? No, I'm not giving anybody any ideas.
All right, so we talked about travel. One of the things we'll talk about is the time of year you may make that move. And this is an important factor. You know, you're moving and relocating, depending on the time of year it is and what kind of weather is, the patterns going on there, may make it harder or easier for you. And things you may not have experienced, like you mentioned, snow. You buy a house all of a sudden in Connecticut,
Leaves.
and the amount of snow you get or the amount of leaves you get, and things you have to think about, having your driveway cleaned, having your property being raked, knowing who to hire people for the house you're buying, and not that you can't do it yourself, but you may want to start talking to your realtor about, hey, do you have a landscaper? Do you have a snowplow person? These are things that are important. In addition to time of year, I'm going to talk about families and kids again and relocating. The best time, in my opinion, from going through this experience, to move a family is not during the summertime. The best time to move your family is actually September through May, in my opinion, and I'll tell you why. If you have kids in school already, one of the hardest things for kids to do is acclimate to a new school system. And young kids especially, if you're shy and you're not outgoing, you tend to kind of, pull it to yourself in the corner and not go. During the school year, when you go to school and you relocate and your kid goes to a new school and school's already started, most teachers will say, hey, here's Eric. He's a new kid in our class. Come say hello to Eric. And he walks up to Eric and shakes his hand, and everybody wants to be friends with Eric and get to know him a little bit.
You think that's how it happens?
100%. And I'll
Okay.
tell you, I hope it's still today, but that's how it was when I was growing up. Because my parents moved me in the summertime. And while it's very convenient for, people to move in the summertime, it's hard because when I was growing up, kids are in camps. So you move into a town, all the kids are in camps, nobody's around. You really don't know what kids live in those neighborhoods and who actually lives there outside of their parents, unless they're in some kind of sports program they got involved with through the school, and they're involved in sports. So if they're an athlete, they're going to be very well adjusted. But if they're not, or they're not the age of level of those kind of activities where they're into, it's going to make it very tough. So I'm going to recommend to you, know your child and know their type of personality are and think about those kind of things. And that's why this market between September and December is such a hot market for people to buy and sell properties. People keep saying, it's going to slow down. Well, let me tell you something. It's not only going to slow down, it's going to pick up. August, very slow month as a whole. People are traveling, moving around, getting kids ready for school. Watch what happens September, October, November. It's going to be flooding here into Connecticut with people moving in and out. That's my thing.
It's going to be scenic, too.
Scenic, very scenic.
Leaves changing colors. You got the mountain region.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank
We
you
don't
so
have
much.
a mountain, do we?
We do have some mountains.
Yeah?
Southington,
Okay.
New Haven. We have
Mount
Sleeping
Southington.
Giant, Sleeping Giant over here in
Right.
New Haven, Hamden. We have mountains.
There's no mountains up north, is there?
There probably are that I just don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm just going to say yes, there is.
I would imagine if there are, they're the ski spots.
Definitely ski
Yeah.
spots. As a matter of fact, the valley has a lot of mountains. All the roads, up and down, up and down.
Yeah, because you can't get flat land out there.
This is true. All right, so we're going to the next part of our show, our tumbler giveaway, as we do every week with a free tumbler. We're going to the wheel, which we can't see because Jonathan's not showing to us. Maybe Jonathan can share with us who might be the winner is today.
YC Graham 03 from Instagram.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here today. We love being with you. Hello and shalom to Israel and my family over there and friends. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being a part of our show. It's a good show today.
Yeah, it was fun.
Very educational.
It was fun.
very
Everybody
informative.
knows I'm annoyed with the leaves.
Have a great day, everybody. We will see you next week. And if you need any real estate, by the way, very important, Team Powerhouse would love to work for you. That's Erik Vazquez. His cell number, 203-707-9077. He's a great realtor, a great guy, very knowledgeable in many aspects of real estate. do not hesitate to call them. You can always inbox on our personal pages, our Facebook page, our Instagram. Please reach out to us. We really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And I would love to talk to you as well, so do not hesitate to call me as well.
Everybody on the team is good, by the way.
Everybody on the team.
Everybody, top to bottom.
Should I do a roll call of people in our team? Let's do a quick roll call before we end the show. And I'm going to
And while you're doing the roll call,
Yes.
Do we have a guest next week or
It's to be determined. Actually, we do have
TBD? Okay.
TBD. All right, so we have, if you're looking at our Facebook page or Instagram page or any of our social media, you'll see on the far left, Caitlin Godin. Oh, we do have a great guest, by the way, next week. Caitlin Godin, Realtor Team Powerhouse. Balvin right. Next to Caitlin, from left to right. So Balvin right. Charles E. Gaetano. Erik Vazquez. I'm in the center, David Lemel. To my right, Gary Monroe. To the right of Gary, Madison Hill. Then you have Jean Max. To the right, Sanat. And then, of course, to the right of Gene is Jamie Franco, our newest and most exciting realtor who's joined our team, and Faustino Lopez on the far right. So, guys, we've got 10 agents for you to take care of you. Anything you want. We work the whole state of Connecticut. Do not hesitate to call us, text us, reach out to us, inbox us.